Wuxia is a concept profoundly unique to China, with roots stretching all the way back to Chunqiu Zhanguo, the spring and autumn and warring states periods. But to define Wuxia merely as stories about martial arts masters fighting to become legends is to miss its heart. At its core, Wuxia is a moral universe, a world where heroes use their strength to protect the justice, defend the weak, and to pursue their personal faith and principles. This universe wasn't invented by any single person. Rather, it is a collective dream, a cultural tapestry woven over centuries by historians, philosophers, and writers. The threads of this tapestry come from four distinct origins: history, philosophy, religion, and literature. Our first thread is history. In ancient China, there were individuals of extraordinary martial skill who were neither soldiers nor officials. They didn't serve the emperor. Their loyalty was to a higher code of conduct. Their credo was, "Your word must be trustworthy, your action must bear result, and a promise made must be kept with absolute sincerity." A great analogy for Western audiences would be the Knights of the Round Table. And the crucial difference is that the Chinese xia swore no oath to a single king. Their loyalty was to their friends, their personal honor, and to delivering justice for the common people. This ideal was immortalized in the records of the grand historian Shi Ji by Sima Qian. His chapter Biographies of Wandering Knights, 游侠列传, was the first official historical record to celebrate these ordinary heroes who helped the weak out of their own volition. The single text established the historical and cultural significance of the xia for all time. The second thread is philosophy, and it gives Wuxia its moral heartbeat. The philosophy is Moism. While you might be familiar with Confucianism, Moism was its major rival during the Warring States period. The Moists were a highly disciplined organization who championed the ideas of universal love, 兼爱, and condemning aggressive warfare, 非攻. It was Moism that endowed the xia with their unshakable reason to fight, not for personal glory, but for the benefit of all. The third thread is religion and medicine, which provided the Wuxia with its superpowers. Now, if you're familiar with Chinese fantasy, you might know Xianxia, which features godlike beings and epic, world-altering magic. Wuxia is different. While it also contains elements that aren't scientifically possible, like 真气, true qi, and 内力, inner strength, these concepts are grounded in real-world Chinese thought. The idea of cultivating an inner energy comes directly from Taoist practices aimed at longevity and spiritual enlightenment. This explains how a Wuxia hero's power comes not just from muscles, but from energy cultivated within the body. Furthermore, the meridian theory from traditional Chinese medicine provided a, quote, scientific, unquote, blueprint for abilities like acupoint striking and internal energy circulation. Even Chinese Buddhism, Chan, contributed the idea of epiphany, that a sudden enlightenment could allow a martial artist to break through to an entirely new level of mastery. Finally, we come to the thread that wove all the others together, literature. This tradition of storytelling began with the 传奇, or tales of the marvelous, in the Tang dynasty. Stories like 聂隐娘 and the curly-bearded guest featured remarkable assassins and wanderers with supernatural abilities. These were no longer just historical records. They were conscious work of fiction that embraced the fantastic. The true milestone arrived during the Ming and Qing dynasties with novels like The Water Margin, 水浒传. This epic masterpiece painted a vivid picture of the Jianghu, the rivers and lakes, a self-governing underworld of heroes, outlaws, and sects existing outside official society. It was a world with its own justice, its own honor, and its own dreams. Then, in the 20th century, authors like Jin Yong and Gu Long took these accident ingredients and codified Wuxia into the genre we know and love today. Jin Yong wove profound historical events, philosophical depth, and unforgettable characters into his grand tapestries. Gu Long, in contrast, pioneered a more poetic and suspenseful style, focusing on the psychological complexity of his heroes. So to conclude, Wuxia is not a random invention. It is the culmination of China's long memory. It is history romanticized, philosophy dramatized, and spiritual dreams given physical form. It is a universe where the strength of one's character is measured by the depth of one's compassion, and where the ultimate mastery is not over others but over oneself. This is the unique culture DNA of China, brought to life. Now, this brings us to a crucial question. Why does the world of Wuxia always seem to flourish in times of chaos and turmoil? Understanding this is key to understanding why Where Winds Meet chose its specific historical setting. At its heart, Wuxia is not a celebration of peace and order. It is a response to their collapse. In a golden age, under a wise emperor and honest officials, people trust the government. The system works. There is little need for individuals to take the law into their own hands. But when the empire crumbles, when the central power fails, when laws become meaningless and chaos reigns, that is when the world of Jianghu, the rivers and lakes, is born. Jianghu is the underground society that exists beyond the reach of corrupt officials and powerless kings. It is a world with its own rules, not of law but of righteousness and personal honor. It is in this moral vacuum that the Xia must step forward. Their strength is not just for personal glory. It becomes the only shield for the common people, the only weapon against the rampant evil. Therefore, a time of chaos isn't just a backdrop of these stories. It is the essential crucible that forges them. It creates the complex moral choices, the desperate struggles for survival, and the very need for a hero who answers to a code higher than any imperial decree. But what does the specific chaos look like in Where Winds Meet? To understand that, we need to step back and look at the era it's sandwiched between. Think of two of China's most glorious, cosmopolitan, and well-known dynasties, the Tang and the Song. The Tang dynasty was a true global superpower. Its capital, Chang'an, was one of the largest and most diverse cities in the world, an eastern terminus of the legendary Silk Road. It was a period of incredible openness, art, and cultural exchange. Then came the Song dynasty, renowned for its economic revolution, technological marvels like movable type printing, and an unparalleled era of artistic and philosophical refinement. However, these two brilliant eras didn't flow smoothly from one to the other, because history is really so neat. The Tang dynasty collapsed in 907 AD. The Song dynasty wasn't founded until 960 AD. So what happened in between? For over half of a century, China was plunged into a period of utter fragmentation and warfare known as the Five Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms, 5代十国. This was the dark age that connected the two golden ages. It was an era where central authority vanished and countless warlords fought for control. Life for ordinary people was brutal, short, and defined by constant uncertainty. And this might be why we see so few TV shows or movies set in this period, because it's a painful, complex scar on our historical memory. However, it's also the perfect backdrop for our game. For instance, some of you raised in the comments, the game's economy seems complex, with many different currencies. And you are absolutely right. But this isn't arbitrary game design. This is a deliberate choice to mirror the historical reality of that fractured era. With the empire shattered into competing states and regions, there was no single, unified money. Different areas used different currencies. Trade was a messy affair of exchange and barter. So, when you travel across the different maps in Where Winds Meet and find yourself dealing with various local currencies, you're actually experiencing a key piece of historical authenticity. The game isn't trying to be complicated for the sake of it. It's trying to make you feel the reality of a world where no single power could standardize the economy. It's all part of pulling you deeper into this forgotten, chaotic, and fascinating chapter of history. This is the exact creative bedrock for Where Winds Meet. By setting its story at the chaotic end of the 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms period and the beginning of the Song Dynasty, the game isn't just choosing a dramatic era from a history book. It is planting its story in the very soil where the legends of the Xia are most authentic, most believable, and most compelling. It was an age of shattered empires and remade loyalties, an age that perfectly embodies the very spirit of Wuxia. To understand the chaos of the 5 dynasties, we must first witness the unraveling of a golden age. Our chaos truly begins not in darkness, but in dazzling light, at the peak of the Tang Dynasty. Back then, China experienced its most glorious and cosmopolitan era, a time when the Silk Road hummed with life and the capital, Chang'an, was the world's most magnificent city. But empires often crack from within. In his later years, the once diligent Emperor Xuanzong grew distant from his duties, enthralled by his beloved consort, Yang Guifei. Power gradually slipped into the hands of a conning minister, Li Linfu, and later the ambitious Yang Guozhong. It was an age of indulgence and political intrigue at the court, while profound changes were reshaping the empire. The most dangerous of these changes was the rise of the Jiedushi, original military governors. Originally established to defend the vast frontiers, these governors were granted unprecedented power over their territories, commanding armies, collecting taxes, and administering law. They became like kings in their own domains, their loyalty to the central court growing thinner with each passing year. The inevitable explosion came in 755 AD. A Jiedushi named Anlu Shan, commanding the empire's finest armies and feeling threatened by the court, launched a catastrophic rebellion. The Anlu Shan rebellion shattered the peace of centuries. Though it was eventually put down after 8 years of brutal warfare, the Tang dynasty was left a hollow shell. The central government's authority was irreparably broken. The Jiedushi, now more powerful than ever, operated as de facto independent warlords. The great unified empire had fractured into a patchwork of rival states in waiting. This is the crucial backdrop to everything that follows. The proud, unified China of the Tang was gone. In its place was a fragile, decaying structure held together by tenuous alliances and simmering rivalries, waiting for the final push that would bring it all down. It was onto this fractured stage that our 3 key stories would emerge, and the first is a story of unwavering loyalty, born from the empire's final, fading breath. The story of the Anxi Protectorate Army happened in the western regions and into the heart of the Forgotten Oath. In the 8th century, the glorious Tang Empire, once the undisputed center of China, is shattered by rebellion. The heartland is in chaos, and in this chaos, a crucial thread is cut. The thread connecting the imperial court to its farthest frontier, the Anxi Protectorate, a military garrison deep in Central Asia. Suddenly, these soldiers are completely alone. Behind them, the empire they knew is collapsing. Before them, powerful nomadic tribes see an opportunity. They are a lone island in a rising hostile sea, with no hope of reinforcement. Any rational commander would have surrendered, negotiated, or carved out his own kingdom. But the Anxi army did not. For decades, nearly half a century, they held their ground. While new emperors rose and fell into the central plains, these men, growing older and grayer, continued to fight under the banner of an empire that, for all they knew, might no longer exist. They maintained discipline. They defended their posts. Their loyalty became a ghost haunting a forgotten frontier. And we know this not just from a legend, but from a silent, powerful piece of evidence. The 大历元宝 coin. After losing contact with the capital, they continued to mint their own currency, using the reign title 大历 from decades past. These coins are more than money. They are tangible pieces of time. They are a declaration. With every coin struck, they were screaming into the silence. We're still here. We're still Tang. The emperor's time is still our time.
西君何在？安西君何在？安西君何在？
This is where history transcends fact and becomes a profound meditation on loyalty itself. What does it mean to be loyal when the object of your loyalty has vanished? Is it foolishness, or is it the purest form of faith? This is the very essence that Where Winds Meet seeks to capture. Through its unique dream-walking mechanic, the game doesn't just tell you this history. It aims to make you feel its weight. You don't just learn about their isolation, you will, in a way, experience the sheer, crushing vastness of the desert that separated them from home. You will feel the weight of the armor they wore and the heavier weight of the promise they kept. And this immersive journey is at the heart of the game's third chapter, aptly titled Homecoming. Here, you will not be a passive spectator to history. You will be an active participant in its final, breathless moments, understanding not just the strategic hold of a fortress, but the human, aging yearning for home that fueled this impossible stand. So remember the name, the Anxi Protectorate, for when you eventually encounter them in your journey, you will be facing more than just the NPCs in a quest. You will be standing in the presence of an echo, the echo of a promise that outlasted an empire. The second key is the story of a catastrophic betrayal, a deal that warped the map of China. The fate of the Anxi Protectorate was ultimately a tragic one. After decades of defiant isolation, the last Tang strongholds in the western regions were finally swallowed by the sands of time and the tide of new powers. Their story faded into legend, a haunting prologue to the chaos that would engulf the heartland. And in nearly 2 centuries after that, there was a relentless downward spiral. The Anlu Shan rebellion had shattered the imperial framework. The emperor's authority never truly recovered, and the regional governors, the Jiedu-shi, became utterly independent warlords. This era, known as the Later Tang, was a mere shadow of its glorious predecessor, locked in endless, draining wars against these powerful factions. The final death blow to the old order came with the Huangchao Rebellion, a massive peasant uprising that rampant across the empire in the late 9th century. It didn't just challenge the emperor, it devastated economic and social foundations of the entire country. In the rebellion's wake, a powerful warlord named Zhu Wen seized his chance. In 907 AD, he forced the last Tang emperor to abdicate and declared himself the first emperor of a new later Liang dynasty. This act formally ended the Great Tang and ignited the full-blown era of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms. This was a world where military strength was the only law. Emperors were made and unmade by their own soldiers. And into this world of brutal opportunism was born Shi Jingtang. Here, a crucial pattern re-emerges. Just like An Lu Shan centuries before him, Shi Jingtang was ethnically Shatuo, a Turkic people who had been incorporated into the Tang military system. This highlights a defining tension in Chinese history. The empire often relied on the military prowess of non-Han generals to defend its frontiers, but this very reliance could threaten the center. Shi Jingtang, as a military governor for the later Tang court, felt threatened by the emperor and coveted the throne for himself. In 937 AD, he did what many ambitious warlords in this era considered. He turned to an even greater external power for help. He appealed to the rapidly expanding Khitan Empire to the north. The price for their elite cavalry was staggering. Shi Jingtang not only recognized the Khitan Emperor as his father, becoming the humiliatingly titled Sun Emperor, but he also ceded a stretch of a land known as the 16 prefectures of Yan and Yun. In Chinese, Yan Yun 16州. This was not just any land. These prefectures formed the Great Wall in the earth, a natural defensive line of mountains and passes that had protected the Central Plains for a millennium. Giving them away was an unforgivable geopolitical sin. It opened the floodgates for the Khitan, who soon established the powerful Liao dynasty to raid the Chinese heartland at will. For the million of Han Chinese people living in these prefectures, life under a new foreign ruler was one of subjugation and longing. This was the endless winter, an era of collective trauma. But the human spirit rebels against subjugation. In the year 945, after a second major Khitan southern expedition failed, a flicker of hope emerged. Seeing a chance that the lost homeland might finally be reclaimed, the warriors of the Jianghu, the common folk, the masters of martial arts, the disciples of chivalry, the Xia, rallied around a shared ideal. They formed the Yanbei Alliance, a fictional creation of the game, born from this collective longing, a coalition dedicated to one secret goal, taking back their home. They found their leader in a revered general, Wang Qing, and among his most dedicated followers was a young, idealistic warrior named Jiang Yan, who would later become the adoptive father of the protagonist we will play. This brings us directly to the moment where our game begins. In the very first cinematic we'll see, the 19-year-old Jiang Yan was pursued by enemies, fighting desperately to protect the precious secret he carries, us as an infant. His flight, his sacrifice, leads him to a hidden sanctuary known as Shenxiandu, the very place where we'll grow up, and where our own story will begin. So you see, the name Where Winds Me is no mere poetry. It is a brilliantly evocative translation that captures the essence of this world. It describes the exact volatile frontier where the bitter wind from the steppes clashed with the longing wind from the south. Yet, the original Chinese title, 燕云十六声 grounds us even more directly in its brutal history. Yan Yun is the name for the lost 16 prefectures, the very lands torn away in Shi Jingtang's betrayal. And the 16声, 16 sounds, echo across them, perhaps the whispers of a forgotten oath, the ballads of lost heroes, or the battle cries of a new hope. It is a name steeped in the soil of this history, a constant reminder of what was lost and what must be reclaimed. And this storm of ambition, betrayal, and the desperate birth of new powers leads us directly to our third and final key. Our third and final key is the story of elegant coup that pieced it back together. A moment that ended the bloody cycle of the 5 dynasties and ushered in the Song, the very era in which our game truly begins. The 5 dynasties were a brutal relay race of power, where each dynasty was founded by a general who betrayed the last. It started with Zhu Wen, who betrayed the Tang. Then his successors were overthrown by their own subordinates in a dizzying spiral of violence. This was an age where any powerful general was a potential emperor, and the phrase "the son of heaven is made by the strongest army" was the grim reality. But a glimmer of order emerged with the later Zhou dynasty, founded by the capable Guo Wei. His adopted son and successor, Chai Rong, was a brilliant and ambitious ruler. He dreamed of reunifying China and launched successful campaigns, even reclaiming some territories from the Khitan. He was the hope the age desperately needed. But fate is cruel. Chai Rong died suddenly and young, leaving the throne to his 7-year-old son. The stage was thus set. In 960 AD, with the infant emperor on the throne, reports of a Khitan invasion surfaced. The natural choice to lead the defense was the empire's most respected general, Zhao Kuang-yin. What happened next is one of the most masterfully staged scenes in all of Chinese history. As Zhao Kuang-yin's army camped at Chenqiao Station, just north of the capital, a carefully orchestrated drama unfolded. His key officers and advisors, who had been planning this moment, gathered that night. They argued that the infant emperor could not protect the state, and that General Zhao should be the new sovereign. As the story goes, they confronted him in his tent, while he was conveniently in a drunken stupor, and draped the imperial yellow robe over his shoulders, acclaiming him as emperor. This was the Chenqiao Mutiny, and the act of donning the yellow robe became the ultimate symbol of a military takeover. But was he truly forced? The historical details suggest a brilliantly planned political operation. The sudden Khitan invasion report was likely a fabricated pretext to move the army out of the city. The yellow robe, the symbol of the emperor, doesn't just appear by chance in a military camp. He had to be prepared in advance. And Zhao Kuang-yin's immediate imposition of discipline on his troops, forbidding looting and ensuring a peaceful return to the capital, points to a leader in full control. The genius of Zhao Kuang-yin, however, lies not in the coup itself, which was a standard playbook move of his time, but in what he did after. He was a product of the chaos, but he became its cure. He returned to the capital not with the bloody sword, but with the negotiated peace. He learned the brutal lessons of his predecessors. To prevent any other general from repeating his own act, he famously dismissed his commanders over a cup of wine. At a banquet, he persuaded his most powerful generals to peacefully retire, exchanging their military command for vast estates and honors. With this one graceful yet decisive gesture, he began to end the century of warlordism that had defined the 5 dynasties. he proved to be a truly transformative ruler. By prioritizing civil administration over military expansion and fostering an era of economic and cultural growth, he laid the foundation for the Song dynasty's unparalleled prosperity. He used the tools of the chaotic age to ultimately build a lasting peace. But in 962 AD, when our protagonist turns 16 and our main chapter begins, this new order is still fragile. The Song has not yet completed its unification. Meanwhile, in the south, the sophisticated southern Tang kingdom endured. It is crucial to understand that, despite its name, mainstream history views it not as a direct continuation of the Great Tang, but one of the most prominent states to emerge from the fragmentation of the 5 dynasties and the 10 kingdoms period. To bolster their legitimacy, its founding father, originally surnamed Xu, famously adopted the imperial surname Li, crafting a narrative that he was the rightful heir to the Tang's glorious legacy. Now ruling the peaceful and economically thriving Jiangnan region, this kingdom became a sanctuary for poets, painters, and refined culture, a realm of wistful elegance, living on borrowed time yet shining with a final, brilliant light. It is here that we find one of its last rulers, the legendary Li Yu, known in our game by his elegant alias, the Southern Flame Prince, Nanzhu Gongzi. He was, in truth, a sublime artist rather than a capable sovereign. It was his poetic genius that would immortalize him in history, even as his political world crumbled into dust. And this is the precise, perfect moment that Where Winds Meet captures. The old chaos of the 5 dynasties has passed, but the new order of the Song is not yet absolute. The great southern conquests have not yet begun. It is a breath held between 2 eras. An age where heroes rise from all corners of the land. And in Where Winds Meet, we won't start as an all-powerful genius or preordained hero. Instead, we're a young novice, courageous yet reckless, resilient yet tender-hearted. It is through advancing the main story and exploring this vast Jianghu that we will gradually grasp the very sense of what it means to be a xia. Wuxia, at its core, is a genre of collective portraits. Every person we meet on our journey, our family, our companions, even fleeting acquaintances, will shape our understanding of this world. They will show us what they fight for, why they sacrifice, and in doing so, they will help us forge our own unique interpretation of Jianghu. As we come to the close of this video, I want to speak up for this game. Because even though it's free to play, it stands distinctly apart from most titles in that category. This is an incredibly ambitious project, packed with breathtaking detail and creative imagination. It's clear that behind it lies a team of deeply talented people, and this game is truly their labor of love. What draws me so passionately to Where Winds Meet isn't just its engaging gameplay, its sense of tangible immersion, or the friends I've made while playing. It's the story it tells. As I've shared, the era of the 5 dynasties and 10 kingdoms was turbulent and complex. For many creators, it might not be the easiest setting to approach, but history isn't always made of glory. In today's fast-paced, flashy world of entertainment, heavy historical themes don't always attract a wide audience. And that's exactly why it moves me to see teams like this one forging new paths. They're moving with the times, using contemporary forms like gaming to help people connect with culture and history in a fresh light. It's also thanks to the game that I've been able to share this rich historical backdrop with all of you, as a fellow player speaking our shared language. And perhaps along the way, it might remind you of your own culture and history, and help you realize that although we may come from different places, have different skin tones, and speak different languages, our humanity is deeply alike. Greed and excess often lead to disaster. Reflection helps us grow, and the lesson from painful history should never be hatred. It should be a reason to hold each other closer. However, our paths may cross, whether here in the comments, in another video, or somewhere out there in the wider world. I hope we continue this journey of discovery together. Thank you for your open-mindedness, for listening to me share a chapter from my culture's story, and for being such a thoughtful community. This game will launch in just a few days. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join you right away, as I will be traveling for work. But when I return, I look forward to diving in and continue our conversations. If you have any questions or thoughts about the game, the history, or anything we've discussed, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Until then, take care, and perhaps I'll see you in Yan Yun.